Hello, Ashley. So apparently, I have misplaced the videos that I made for you, and so we're gonna talk about it again. So here we are on February 22nd, and let's go ahead and screen share here and take a look at your emotive squares project and just give you some feedback. Now, the first thing that I would highlight, and I highlight this just for everybody because I think it's very important that this point is made and that you are doing a good job of the naming of your files. When you're asked to put together a digital presentation and you're asked to submit files or send a project or whatnot, and there's a naming strategy or some sort of naming convention that you're being asked to use, it's very important that you do that. And so you've done a great job here. You get your full name, underscore emotive squares, all lowercase. So I know that's, sounds like, nothing, but it is something. And it makes the work of the reviewer, it makes that much easier because there's a reason to have it uniform like that, so you can easily pick out what it is that you're looking for, what project it is, and who it is that you're exploring. So we're looking here at lonely and the first few here. And I would say in this first grouping, you're just kind of getting started here. I mean, I think it's an interesting strategy, of course, lonely, and try to use just one singular object. But this is probably closer to isolation, and there's a difference between isolation and loneliness. Isolation is a complete removable, and loneliness tends to be more of a comparative judgment, whether something is sort of completely by itself, or whether you're noticing that it is sort of separated out. And I think these down here, while you're using the entire picture frame, you're actually very effectively incorporating negative space in here. You're using lots of space and lots of gaps between this grouping here and then this grouping here very effectively. You've got them positioned in a way that they are far enough apart to highlight the idea that there's this separation, but there still is an activity that's happening, and there's meaning to this gap in this space. Now, of this sequence, which one is working sort of more effectively than others? I would, as I'm looking through here, I would say that this one is working quite well. And the reason that it's working quite well is, again, we're using the entire frame. But what we're doing also, in addition to separating this object, this square, from the rest of them, we're also giving it a different character. And the reason you're doing that, and I don't know that you're particularly aware of it, or this is just sort of something that happened here, but all of these other squares are askew a little bit. They're not straight up and down, right? They're turned this way or turned that way. And this guy is, for the most part, straight up and down. And so that actually creates this visual variance of it as well. So not only is this little guy separated over here, but this little guy is also oriented differently than the others, which creates more of that isolation. It creates more of that energy. There's a lot you can do with just simple squares, I think. And so I think of those, that's quite an effective here. These, I think, are less because what you've got is an equal it's almost like a dichotomy here, an equal tension, a weight here. You don't feel like there's one side and then there's another. And so I think of these experiments, I think the one that you're working with, this sort of playful unit over here, and then the isolated is the most effective. Tension is created, yes, by a comparison, right? The tension is being created in this way. And so as you're exploring this first solution, you're noticing that the tension is not at its highest because you've got equal weight between all three of these objects. Even though you're weighting this one down a little bit and this one's weighted up a little bit, which is fine, the actual tension that's being created amongst the objects is being countered, in fact, by the negative space on either side of it, because what you're doing now is creating a rhythm, and that rhythm is relieving some of the tension. there. So that one, while I think it's a good exploration, is probably less of an effective solution for tension. Now, getting into this kind of stuff, this is creating a really wonderful tension here. This probably is the most effective of the tensions, and the reason for that is not only are we creating this object where you've made a focal point here. That focal point is creating this energy through the diagonals. Diagonal lines are going to create a particular kind of energy that a horizontal line or a straight up and down vertical line is not going to do. And so what you've got is two elements that are fairly equal in size, but they are sort of colliding here in this moment right here, which is creating an incredible amount of tension. So for that reason, it's excellent. Plus, adding the fact that you're using the whole picture plane, it's separating, it's running off the edges. Very, very good work. This one is a little bit less because it feels a little unbalanced. Perhaps if there was an element over here, this would be an excellent candidate for adding like a headline or a title card or something like that. It is creating tension, but not nearly to the effect that this one is. These others, again, they feel almost too rhythmic in order to create the tension. There's less there as opposed to here and here. They're excellent designs, though. I think your use of space here and your use of space here is really, really good. Very good. Playful. Now, playful is a peculiar one because you start to think about what is play. What is playful? What does that kind of look like? The word playful. And we sort of think about like what is play? Is play an organized thing or is play an unorganized thing? Is play something that is that has a structure to it, like a game with rules? Or is play something that is just sort of uninhibited and free in form? And your approach to it is going to sort of indicate which side of that line you're on as far as that goes. And it looks like what you're using is a sort of a kind of a rhythm to it, and maybe a bit of organization that's happening to it, as if we're taking a jump or taking this leap off of here. Using the curve is a very good idea because the curve creates a sort of organic sort of sensibility about it. Again, really good use. I don't know if this is just intuitive, you're just naturally coming to this, or if you're coming to it with some other experiences that you might be looking at. But this is very good use of space here. Now here you're doing more of the scattered, more of the unorganized play. This is sort of like if I were to walk outside and see a bunch of little kids running around during recess with no particular direction that they're going in. They're just going in all directions. It has a sense to it, but I don't know that it is design-wise communicating exactly what you're looking for, because I am looking at these as an interested party. In other words, I'm looking for these themes. Most audience members are not. This will give them the sense of this sort of rhythmic sort of playfulness, I think, as opposed to this may come across to a disinterested viewer, someone who isn't expecting to have to think about anything. It would look maybe just more like a scattered, arrangement. Heavy. Again, this I applaud you for it's good. It's good that you're trying to be minimal here, that you are trying to reduce it down to the least of elements. And I think you're getting somewhere maybe with this one. It's very simple, very minimal. Can you make it happen? This one's on its way. I think it still needs some other element. Maybe if we flipped it around, maybe if there was a slight bit of angle to it or something like that we could get away with it. Not quite there though, but excellent try. Very, very good at attempting to do it that way. Heavy again is a comparative. So what we want to see is the struggle. We want to see where the object is struggling against the weight. And I'm not sure if we quite nailed it on these, where this is getting close and this is getting close. And the reason they're getting close to feeling that way is we're starting to feel a little bit of the pressure here. But man, these things look pretty solid. look pretty rigid. They're not going to move. This is the heavy object, but it's hitting an immovable force, right? Or what is that saying? The unstoppable force hits the immovable object, kind of thing. And so I'm not quite getting the gravity here. If these were under a little bit more pressure or a little more weight, perhaps we could get there. Excellent use of space, like I've been saying all along. But on this one, I think we're using form a little bit too rigidly because I'm not quite getting the sense that this little guy is under stress, is being burdened by the weight of this. Maybe this isn't as heavy as it might appear. It's just big, right? Just observations. Congested. Congested, again, is all about movement that is being arrested. That is what congested is mainly about. And here I think you're getting to it right in here. We're zooming in and kind of coming in a little bit closer. The eye is meant to kind of follow along here, at least that's what I'm gathering from your presentation. And it's being arrested here by this energy, by these diagonals. That's a good strategy, very good strategy. We're getting it a little bit here where they're starting to get crowded in and filling up. Again, that's a good strategy. Congested is really all about starting the viewer down a pathway of seeing, like looking along a pathway, and then as you're drawing their eye towards something, then giving some obstacle for them to be broken up in. So excellent. I mean, I know I've kind of picked out some of the good ones that weren't quite so as effective as the others. Talking about feedback, when we get into discussing feedback, it's really more about what are you doing with it? And when you're being offered feedback and you're receiving feedback, or whether you're giving feedback to somebody else, what is the objective? What are you trying to do? So as the person offering the feedback, you are simply offering your observation, your point of view. It's not your job as a viewer to try to figure out what the artist is trying to tell you. It's actually not that at all. It's more about the viewer offering a genuine observation, what they are seeing. And then the artist, as you're receiving it, it's not for you to try to figure out what that gap is, right? To figure out what is the difference between what I wanted to happen and what the viewer saw, and I got this chasm in between. You're focusing on that chasm and like, how do I fix that? Instead, take yourself out of it completely and look at just the feedback. Look only at what the audience has seen and think about how did they get there? Think about how did they arrive at that idea? What did they see in my work, or your work in this case? What did they see in the work that got them to that conclusion, that got them to the point where they're saying, this is what I see. If you can do that, then you can start to discover just what it is that is effective, and then you can repeat it if you need to. That's much more valuable than trying to needle point what it is that the audience saw that you didn't want them to see or whatnot. If you can gather how did they arrive at their observation, that's the best. And see, this works even if the audience sees exactly what you want them to. They like arrived at the exact conclusion that you want them to, but perhaps they're arriving at it in a way that you didn't expect. You still want to know, right? You still want to gather that information. So that's basically an overview of my observations. I do apologize for the misplacement of your video. Hopefully you're still getting something out of this. Feel free. You may have gone and seen other videos. You would see me repeating some of the things that I'm talking about only because, excuse me, only because this is a very structured project, and so a lot of the feedback is going to be the same. But specifically about your work, an excellent use of the overall space, regardless of whether you were hitting the topic on the head or not. Most of them you did. You did a good job of doing that. But I think the one that probably eluded you out of all of them was maybe the heavy. Didn't quite get that sense all the way, but all the other ones worked pretty well. Well, thank you for your patience, actually, for waiting for this video, and I will see you in class. All right, bye-bye now.